Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, it's something you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's so sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really. Right? We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Savatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. This is a full circle, amazing bucket list moment, and I am so excited that you are here with me to capture it because I have wanted to have a podcast or just to share my story in a way that it could reach more people in hopes to help them maybe reconnect with their inner child through my story. And so the fact that this is happening right now feels pretty amazing. And again, I'm so grateful that you took some time out of your day to sit with me and to learn a little bit about my story and join us on this journey where we share lots of unscripted stories, because I personally have found so much healing in sharing my own story and helping other people reconnect with their story and their inner child and all of the healing that can come from it. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, welcome back now. We had to make some little adjustments because, full disclosure, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just here showing up. I just wanted to bring my jazz hands, tell my story, but there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that your girl doesn't know anything about. So bear with me as I learn about this process as well. Asking for help is always super triggering, and it's something that I've really had to work on as an adult. And so asking you to, find me on social media or subscribe to my YouTube channel or this podcast is like super, super uncomfortable for me. But it's interesting that the other night I was having a conversation with my daughter about the work that I'm doing, and she said something to me that got me, that struck me. And she said, "Mom, you need to start taking care of yourself too." I was like, damn, girl. So by me asking you to go find me on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube under Unscripted Healing would be amazing. And I would love to receive that gift because I'm still working on my ability to receive. So I'm putting myself in this awkward situation to fumble my way through this and ask you for that. So thank you in advance. But let's get to it because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I respect that you are here and in sharing some of your day with me. And I want to share a little bit about why I'm even here, why I'm doing this podcast. And so I'm a registered dietitian, but I realized that this was not about the food. My issues, they were never about the food. And it took me a good 35 plus years to figure that out. And what I found was that everything had stemmed from childhood wounds. But I didn't even know that I had childhood wounds until a few years ago. But now that I know and now that I see them, I can't unsee them in myself or in other people. And so, how do I spread this word and this message that we have little people inside of us that need a lot of healing? And so that's why I'm here. And that's why I made this transition and why I want to be able to share these unscripted stories with all of you. So I'll start with mine because that seems fitting, I guess. And it's so interesting to me because throughout my journey, there were specific times in my life where I would sit with why. And I never fully understood that. I never got to the depth of why. But looking back, it all makes sense. So when I was in third grade, this is kind of my first memory of all of a sudden not feeling worthy. And for whatever reason, I started doing Tony Little workout videos. I actually just found the VHS tapes of them last week. And my kids are like, "What are these? How do you even play these?" I'm like, oh man, talk about feeling old. But I was trying to change my body then. And if you were to look back at pictures of me in third grade, I was a completely normal weight kid. I don't remember getting teased or bullied or anything like that. I was an active kid. So it never made sense to me. Where did this come from? where all of a sudden I was feeling like whether my body wasn't good enough or I wasn't good enough, there was something, some message that I picked up from somewhere. And it wasn't until a few years ago where I started to even piece that together, is that no one made fun of me. So why did I start to take that on? And one of the puzzle pieces, there could be more, but one of the things that made sense to me was that I'm the youngest of 4 girls. And the sister right above me, we always joked, because she was kind of the tall and lean one. And like, where did you come from? Like, what family did you get dropped in from? Because it didn't seem like it fit, right? Because I certainly didn't have a body type like that. And it wasn't that she ever made comments or made me feel bad, or really anybody. But what I heard a lot was people commenting about her body and how she was so tall and skinny all the time. And I was just standing there like, okay, well, I guess like, what am I? Turns out like my ego, my protective ego took that story and totally twisted it into, well, you don't look like her, so you're not good enough. And that was very much the time back then where skinny was the thing. And so I tried for so much of my life to be that, to be as skinny as I could be, or just to try to make my legs smaller or my butt invisible and all of these things. And I did that all through elementary and middle school. And I compared myself to everyone, which I then found out was called body dysmorphia. We became quite good friends. And yeah, so again, when I look back at pictures, I can specifically remember myself comparing myself to a friend in that picture. Like, wow, where did that come from? Fast forward, I get into high school and, I'm probably like going through early stages of puberty or whatever. And I obviously had put on some weight, but I still wasn't overweight. I was still super active and all of these things. Well, then some bully from the grade above me, for whatever reason, called me a whale. And I will never forget this moment. I don't have a lot of memories from my childhood, but I remember that one. And I remember exactly where I was standing in the hallway. I remember exactly what I was wearing. And it was so interesting to me. And now doing this work, I understand what happened. And so bear with me as I try to describe this. But I'm standing there. He calls me a whale. I completely freeze, right? I'm in this moment of what just happened. And there was so much pain and hurt from that comment that my protective parts, or what some would refer to as ego, swooped in. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We do not want little Tam feeling that. So it was almost like they huddled up and got real close to me and said like, okay, we need to come up with a game plan. How are we going to make sure that she never feels that feeling ever again? So they huddled up and they said, okay, here's the plan. You're going to start restricting your eating, like chicken breast, broccoli, that's about it. You're going to eat like next to nothing, but oh, hey, also you're going to work out before school. You're going to go to practice, and then you're going to work out after school too. And in the meantime, every time you look in the mirror, you're going to say the most awful, horrendous things to yourself just to make sure that you're always meaner than anyone else. And man, oh man, did that change the trajectory of my life, because that's exactly what I did. And I completely became a shell of who I was. And I was this like bold, bubbly, fun personality throughout most of school until that moment. And I completely dimmed my light. I have a picture where I was on the dance team. I loved to dance. And I look at this picture and it brings tears to my eyes every single time, because I'm just standing there, my hand on my heart as they're, doing the national anthem. And I look dead inside. I straight up look dead inside. I'm just blank stare, no energy. Even the color in the picture just resembles all of this. And I realized then like I had completely lost who I was. Because at that moment, all of these stories I had taken for so much of my life was trying to dim my light. Way back in grade school, a friend's mom called me obnoxious. Like, well, that didn't sound like a compliment. So I felt like, well, maybe I shouldn't be this loud. Maybe I shouldn't have this much fun. Dimmed my light. 7th grade, coach calls me a hot dog for celebrating a goal. Well, guess what? I've carried that story with me my entire life of, hey, don't celebrate your achievements. Don't shine too bright. Don't follow these big dreams. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Savatsky, you do. Because here I am hosting my own podcast. Okay. Sorry about that. Ooh, that felt good. That was like therapy right there. Oh, so anyway, I'm in high school. I'm drinking Slim Fast cans that are, hidden in a coffee mug so no one sees what I'm drinking. And when I got to college, though, those protective parts were like, ooh, this isn't working anymore. All these things that we used to do to try to numb our feelings, not helping. Because now you're in college, you're coming out of this super toxic relationship, and your parents are gone, your friends are gone, you know nobody. I mean, you guys get that, right? If you've gone through that journey, that transition after high school, it can spin you around in circles. And it certainly did for me. So those protective parts huddled back up in my little teeny tiny dorm room and said, okay, these feelings are a little too much. This restrictive eating thing, it's not working anymore. So the plan they had then was like, I got it. Are you guys ready for this? We're going to emotionally binge eat, okay? They're going to take that sleeve of crackers and you're going to polish off the whole thing in one sitting. You want to call up Papa John's or, local pizza place, order whole pizza, eat it in your car? Awesome. That's what we're going to do. And that's what I did. So I went from the freshman 15 that everyone, was so terrified about. And instead, I did the junior 40. Classic overachiever. But here's the thing. I was an exercise and sports science major. So wasn't a great fit. Certainly didn't do anything for my confidence because when we had to do our body, fat compositions and all of these tests and stuff to practice, I will never forget when they put the piece of paper up on the wall, kind of like if you were, to be cast in a play and you go look to see where your name is and what part you got. There was me, body fat percentage, top of the class. It was great. So I had zero confidence. I'm surrounded by, fit athletes and things all the time and just felt like a complete fraud. I was exercising still. All the time. I was punishing myself every day with exercise for what I had eaten and how crappy I felt about myself. But I wasn't fooling anyone. I would wear the baggiest things at the gym and just completely try to hide myself. So again, just becoming more and more invisible because that felt easier. And so when I realized that exercise was not going to fix this alone, I had proven that and spent a lot of money to learn that lesson. I decided, again, those parts came back in and like, okay, this exercise thing isn't working out for you. I know. Let's go get your master's degree in nutrition because knowledge is power. Knowledge will fix this. So that's what I did. So I go to grad school, I, check all the boxes, do the internship and become a registered dietitian. And I get into a job where I get to now help people. And what I realized that I had a gift in being able to hear people's stories and to be able to connect with them. But what really helped people open up to me as a dietitian was when they heard my story and they realized that, oh, she's human too. She struggles too. Because otherwise, like they had this wall built up, like, what do you know? You've never struggled with your weight before. They assumed, but they had no idea what my story was. And I think there's something so powerful when we are vulnerable with our stories and how that can help open up someone else to be able to speak truth to theirs and share their story too. And so that was the first moment where, again, I didn't know it, how impactful that really was, but that's why I was a good dietitian. Is because I wasn't just talking about the food. I was talking about what was going on in their life and what they were feeling and all of these things. And so that was a really incredible part of my journey, but it wasn't until I really started to open up about my story and I started to share it on social media. And I remember my first post was probably October 19th of 2015. And I called it Confessions of the Detoxing Dietitian. And I can't even tell you, I had so much guilt and shame and worry and all of the negative things about this. But I did it anyway. Because I was, at this point, in complete surrender. My daughter had just turned 2 the weekend before this. And I will never forget that morning getting ready for her party because I was grabbing every piece of clothes out of the closet, putting everything on, and looking myself in the mirror and saying the worst, absolute worst things to myself. I was my own bully. I was bullying myself. I couldn't find anything that I felt good in, anything that I wanted to show up in. I just wanted to be invisible. And I wore the baggiest clothes that day. And the really, really sad part about that is I don't have a single picture with my daughter on her second birthday. And I swore to myself that that would not be the kind of mom that I was. And I had a hard time even thinking that I would be a parent because my body dysmorphia was so bad. Like, I can't trust myself to not gain 10 pounds over a weekend. How am I going to trust my body if I'm pregnant? Like, it was that bad that it almost kept me from becoming a mom. And I know it sounds horrible and vain and all of those things, but that's how much it consumed me. I didn't have a day, an hour that didn't go by where I was obsessing about food or my body or how much I hated it. It was consuming me. And so if any of you out there know what that's like, I am sending you so much love because it's so hard to go throughout your day to focus on work when it is just all consuming. But again, I had no idea where all of these deep feelings of hatred were coming from for myself. But that day was a huge wake-up call for me. It was that like slap across the face. Like, what are you doing, Tami? What are you doing? Your daughter is 2. You are going to need to figure this out if you are going to raise her in a way where she loves her body. Like, how are you going to be that role model for her if you can't do it for yourself? And that was a big, big wake-up call. So going back to this post of this detoxing dietitian, I had completely surrendered. I had bought this like 30-day system that meant, promised to change my life. And I was like, I got nothing else to lose. I have literally tried everything else. I have bought every gizmo or gadget you can possibly imagine off, the infomercials late at night when all my friends were going out and I had no confidence to join them. I would order these things and try all these different programs. I can't even tell you how many different attempts of dieting I have made over the years. So at this point, I had surrendered. And I was in the energy of this has to work. It has to work because I don't know what else to do. And I was at such a loss. And so I started that on October 19th, 2015, and I have never looked back. And it's so interesting to me now because there's so much of the last 8.5 years, I attributed that to the amazing nutrition that was in these shakes and how much intermittent fasting was really helping me. And it truly has. And I still do those things every single day, every single week. But I didn't know then that I was actually healing, that I was actually reparenting my inner child. I didn't even know I had an inner child then. So looking back, like, oh my gosh, this makes sense of why these puzzle pieces were starting to come together because I was actually healing. Because for the first time, I started to feel good. And I liked that feeling. I was like, wow, it feels good to feel good. Who knew? I was in such a fog before. My digestive system was an absolute mess. So I didn't start this 30-day thing to lose weight. I had actually given up at that point, but my gut health was a wreck. So I had a medicine cabinet full of every digestive remedy you could possibly imagine. I even went so far to get the colon prep that you would get if you were going on a colonoscopy adventure. I was just doing that to experience some sort of relief because things were so messed up. So I put myself through that kind of torture. But I was desperate. I was a mess. I was falling asleep in the afternoon. I remember telling my daughter a story before her nap. And she's like, "What did you say, mommy?" I was like, "I don't know." Like, I was brain fog, all of it. I was a mess. My body was screaming at me. So that's where I was at the point of surrender. I'm like, I don't even care if I lose weight at this point. Like, just help me feel better. And within that first week, I started to feel better. I was like, whoa. I started to get my energy back. I was sleeping better. I was like, what the heck? I felt like, is there like magic fairy dust in this stuff? I didn't understand it, but I wasn't going to question it. I just went with it. I let that energy like take me and run with it. And again, where I didn't realize how deep this transformation really was, it wasn't just about my physical transformation. It was what was happening on the inside. And then I started to feel worthy of feeling good. And I wanted to do the things every day that helped me feel good and stay feeling good. And it just became ingrained in me where they started to become what I refer to as my non-negotiables. So my non-negotiables now is like, I have my water every single day. There isn't, I should name my jug. I should actually give it a name because people comment on my water jug all the time. I swear it's like having a baby or a puppy with you when people are always stopping and commenting on it. People do that with my water bottle. So I really should give it a sweet little name. But it's that. It's my 2 shakes a day. It's my balanced meals. There's things that I do consistently for myself because now I feel worthy of caring for myself in that way. I didn't feel worthy of that before. You can hear so many times, like you can get to a certain level in your life, but it stops based on your worthiness, whether that's in your career, whether that's with relationships. Like, what do you actually feel worthy of? Because if you have a ceiling, that's where you'll be met. And that couldn't be more true with my health journey. Like, I can't make up the transitions and the things that have happened physically for me. But as I came to feel more and more worthy, all of the physical stuff just started to change and actually got easier, which seems mind-blowing to me. But there's so many aspects of that along the way where I started to heal my relationship with food. I started to heal my relationship with my body. And then I started to help women do the same. And so COVID happened and everyone was kind of freaking out about this COVID-19 that everyone was going to gain, right? And all the stress eating and emotional eating that were cooped up and all of our coping strategies are out the window and all of these things. And so I created this program called Fiercely Focused at the time. And it was a 6-week nutrition and body kindness program. And I loved it so much. And I poured my heart and soul into this. And it was amazing. It was amazing. For 2 years, I ran that program straight. And I met some of the most incredible women and some that I'm still very, very, very dear friends with today. But they were experiencing not just physical transformation. I mean, like the amount of inches they lost within those 6 weeks was like mind blowing. But again, their energy, their sleep, like all of these other things were happening. It was incredible. But what was really significant about it was how they were actually starting to heal their relationships with food and their body too. Because it was about honoring their body. It was about having this appreciation for all the things that our body does for us every single day. For me to just be sitting here, there's so much that my body is doing for me. And it just came to this part where I realized like I have been beating up my body my entire life. I have been the bully to my body my entire life. And going down this self-hate path never helped. So it's like, why do we keep trying to go down this path and think that that's going to work? And so the whole shift was, what if I try to love myself through this? What if I want to lose weight and feel better because I know I'm worthy of that and it's coming from a place of love for myself and love for this body that does so much for me. Love for this body that has never given up on me, even though I have given up on it plenty. And I have used it as an emotional punching bag. I have hurt it physically when I have eaten food that I know it doesn't like and feel good with. I have pushed myself through injuries, with exercise, like all these things that we have done to our body. And it's never given up on us. And that started to resonate with some of these women because they realized, whoa, I have been super hard on my body all these years. Maybe I should start to love and appreciate it. Let's see what happens. And they did. And it was so amazing. And it absolutely filled my cup. But it was interesting. What I started to notice is that it was just like a matter of time before some of these old habits would start to creep in. Some of the negative thinking would start to creep back in. And I knew, it was an amazing program, but 6 weeks, like you can't just magically poof that stuff away. But it was still really frustrating. I'm like, I can't be a dietitian associated with someone saying this Tami's program didn't work, because I knew there's more to the work. We can't just expect 6 weeks to magically solve things and fix things that we've been dealing with our whole life. But that sent me on this really powerful quest to figure out, okay, well then what is it? What is it about? And that's when I started exploring and trying to listen to my intuition of like, what do these women need? And that's when I found inner child work. But what I didn't know is that I needed it too. Interesting. Universe like, gotcha. You thought it was for all these women, which is classic. Totally worked. Their plan worked amazing because I'm used to doing everything for everyone else, but not for myself. So it sent me on this path thinking I was in search to help all of these other women that I was working with, when really it was that I needed it too. Because on the surface, I had healed a lot of things. I was showing up for myself daily. I was taking care of myself nutritionally. I was watering myself. I was exercising. I was doing all the surface stuff. But emotionally, I was abandoning myself every single day. I still, throughout that time, didn't really know who I was. I knew how I was to other people, but I didn't know who Tami was. But it had to start somewhere. It had to start with that sense of worthiness and that I deserve to feel good. Well, knowing that I deserve to feel good kind of crept over into my career, where I realized I deserve to be in a profession that lights me up, in an environment that feels good. And when I recognized that, oh boy, this path that I was on to be a dietitian and to being in this major health organization where there's security and stability and all of these things and what you should do, all of a sudden wasn't feeling good, and it wasn't lifting me up, and it actually felt really draining. It was kind of like my soul saying, yeah, because you're not supposed to stay here. This was just a stepping stone to gain some experience, whatever you needed to get from this, but this wasn't where you were supposed to stay. And I'm so glad that I listened to that. And I think of how many, maybe you out there, know that's how you feel at your job. It doesn't light you up. It doesn't make you feel good. It feels like it drains your energy, but we stay there because it feels like this is what I should do. This is paying the bills. This is carrying our insurance and all of these things, when really like your soul's like, yeah, but if you followed these gifts that you have or these passions that you have, there's something so much greater out there. And it's interesting. I just got a card from one of my third grade teachers this last weekend, and the quote on there said, you can't discover new oceans if you're afraid to leave the side of the shore. Something like that. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, but you get it. And it's so true. Being at this old job, the way that I felt before, the things that I was doing before, that all felt safe. There was safetiness in that shore. But what I didn't realize was that I was so stuck in the sand. And because of that, I was slowly drowning in those shallow waters. And so made this huge career change, decided to leave, not knowing what the hell I was going to do afterwards, but just knowing and trusting that the universe had something in store for me. I'm pretty sure the book I read at that time was The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein, because I was like, I don't know. I got to trust in something here. I didn't know. I was so lost, so disconnected from anything. And so I took this leap and I left and I went into this crazy world called entrepreneurship. And turns out that was also part of my path, because if there's anything that's going to dig up your childhood wounds, it's becoming an entrepreneur and having to do things like this when it's completely out of your comfort zone and having to use your voice, all the things. And so, yeah, that sent me on a whole other path of, again, feeling like I'm worthy of taking up this space. And, I felt that way as a dietitian. I felt comfortable in that space, but now I'm in this inner child world. And all of a sudden I want to feel myself playing small again, because, I don't have 8,000 diplomas or certificates hanging behind me. Like, what makes me valid, to talk about this stuff? But it's one of those things, like, you've been on this healing journey and you have gone through it. There is nothing textbook about it. There is nothing scripted about it. And it's really hard to describe unless you've been in it. But there's something so incredibly healing. And I know now without a doubt that my whole path from the exercise to the nutrition to inner child work was literally to guide me here. Because what I realized was that exercise and nutrition can sometimes just be used as Band-Aids. They're wonderful Band-Aids, but it's kind of like the little kid who just wants to put a Band-Aid on and it's like, it's this magical Band-Aid that doesn't do anything. It doesn't like heal the wound. We use those things to cover up the wound. And because that's why you can, lose weight in 6 weeks and like feel great. But then all of a sudden those habits come back. We start sabotaging again. I've worked with so many people that have lost 100 pounds several times. So why didn't that diet work? Or it worked one time and why isn't it working again? Or why is this exercise thing not working out? Or I can, go so many weeks into it, but then all of a sudden I sabotage myself again because they're just Band-Aids. If you don't actually heal the wound, you're going to keep getting brought back. And it is one of my favorite quotes because it's so true on this journey, is that you will continue to get the test until you learn the lesson. And I had to get that test so many dang times. Every dieting attempt I made, every workout program that I started and quit and restarted and all of those things, I was getting the test every single time. And every single time, my inner child is like, she still didn't get it. She still didn't get the lesson. You got to bring her another test. Awesome. Great. How many more years are we going to do this, Tami? 10? 20? How about 30? Let's do 30 more years of this. Is super fun. It wasn't super fun until I realized at the core of what was going on and that I had a very deep wound of feeling unworthy. And I'm still working on that. My daughter, 10 years old, just had to give me a pep talk the other night about my worthiness. But I'm on a mission to heal that and to help other people feel worthy of living an awesome, amazing life too, and one that they feel good in their body and they're doing things that bring them joy. But that's hard to do when we are masked with all of these different roles that we think we have to play to please other people, to try to fit in. We're still trying to fit in as adults, just like little kids on the playground. We're still trying to protect ourselves from getting our feelings hurt, whether that's by shutting ourselves down, only allowing people to get so close, or not being able to receive love ourselves, where we are our worst enemy. We are the bully. Because again, you don't want what someone else says to feel worse than what you say to yourself. Like, well, if I say the worst and most awful things, it can't be any worse than that. That one's a really hard one for your inner child. And I think that was a major, major turning point in my journey where I realized that I needed to be the role model for my inner child. I needed to show up for her in the way that she maybe didn't receive those things growing up. And I have found so much healing through my own story, so much appreciation and love, even for my parents, to be able to understand my story and how all these puzzle pieces fit together. And so that's why I'm on this mission, is to help people connect the dots of their story, to help them reconnect with their inner child, because your inner child has so much information for you. They have so much joy, like locked away, just ready for you to experience. But if we keep them like stuck down in the basement where they were told not to be seen, not to be heard, your opinions, your ideas don't matter, we don't get to experience that. And we might go our lifetime without tapping back into that sense of joy and fun and playfulness. And I am all about trying to help people experience that again in their life. And so it's so interesting to me that this whole concept of adults finding themselves, it's literally just remembering who you were as a kid and what you loved to do as a child. And it's reconnecting with your inner child that holds the key and opens up that gateway. So I'm pumped to be here, and I'll share more of my story throughout this, but I'm sure I have rambled on long enough for you guys today. And I can't wait to do more of this because I said I love stories. I love hearing people's stories and helping them make sense of it. And so I hope that you are able to hear yourself somewhere in these stories. And like I said in my intro, if you took time to listen to that, I want you to pay attention if you are noticing goosebumps. If you notice that you have a lump in your throat throughout some of these conversations, or that pit in your stomach, or all of a sudden you feel emotions come up, those are clues for you. Those are clues for you. That is your inner child saying, hey, did you hear that? There's something in there for you. Something about that resonated. That's for you to look at. And that's such a simple way to start the process of reconnecting with your inner child, is just to tune in and listen. And so the fact that you're giving yourself time to listen to this podcast, your inner child is already feeling seen by you, heard by you. And the more that you start to notice those things going on with your body as you're listening to the stories, you're going to get some really cool puzzle pieces along the way. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I cannot wait for you to come back and listen to the next episodes. Until then, do something fun and reconnect with your inner child.
Tami Talks Unscripted Healing is produced by Mortarbox Media. Video, audio, and editing by me, Duke Adams. To learn how we can bring your podcast idea to life, or how we can make your current show even better, visit mortarboxmedia.com.